Hi, I am Ed Schad, curator of the Broad in Los Angeles, and I am happy to be here with you today to talk about Nathaniel Mary Quinn's work, Come On and Walk With Me, 2019. Come On and Walk With Me is not an ordinary portrait. It might better be described as an accumulation of fragments, which, when they come together in charcoal, gouache, and soft and oil pastels, form a figure. This figure is in a pink skirt with black hair, styled with a billowing bouffant, topped with a pillbox hat. However, to say that this collage-like composite portrait forms a figure is but a small part of the story. While one part of my brain, at least, puts a figure together here, another part seems to draw it apart again. I take in the decorative patterns on a shirt sleeve, make contact with an eye aimed out at me, and take in the folds on a suited collar. Each time I come to this work on paper, I seem to take a different path to the person represented. Each part of the painting, a nose, a pair of lips, a pair of shoes, seems to have an individual gravity. The wonderful energy of this work on paper seems to come from a tension in Quinn's compositions. A tension between a desire to know the whole of something and the inability to grasp that same totality. There is a sense of a person, of a personality, even a partial narrative, but the complete story remains at bay, as if this work on paper concerns something being continuously discovered, forgotten, and maybe even rediscovered again. I have always been interested in the ways that different groups of people view one another, the artist has said. How they internalize their own identities, how others perceive them, and how their own self-perceptions are physically expressed. For Quinn, the internalization of identity could be considered a way of thinking about memory, about loss, and sometimes even about trauma. Quinn grew up in the Robert Taylor homes on Chicago's South Side. His middle name, Mary, is a tribute to his mother, who died when he was a freshman at Culver Academy, a boarding school in Indiana. When Quinn returned home from Culver for Thanksgiving, but a month after his mother's passing, Quinn discovered that his father and brothers had simply vanished. Without warning and without explanation. They had disappeared, and Quinn was left to fend for himself. His way of coping with this loss, with the difficulties of his situation, was to commit himself to his work as an artist, a practice that deepened over time, as he divided his energies between making his art and tutoring on the side to make money. It was actually Quinn's lost brother Charles, one of the people who went away that terrible Thanksgiving, who was part of Quinn's artistic breakthrough. As Quinn was working on a painting with composite elements, he was surprised to see his brother's likeness starting to emerge. This insight, the shadowy remembrance of someone or some face from his past, became the driving force behind Quinn's artwork. The person who is remembered could be a family member. They could be a friend. They could be someone still in his life or someone he has fallen out of touch with or who has simply vanished. From various sources, magazines, advertisements, newspapers, and other visual material, Quinn chases and builds the memory, gathering moments from the world which enable him to engage with and draw out the person of whom he is thinking. The images he collects become his artworks. One at a time, Quinn paints the fragments. He paints one part of the composition at a time, with most of the rest of the paper or linen covered and out of view. He does not let the fragments come together too seamlessly. Out of this practice, a portrait comes forth. What I find remarkable about Quinn's work is that this method of assembling a memory out of clues or from breadcrumbs found in one's life mimics the elusiveness of how memory works. I find that I am often able to only remember parts of an event or a face. I may remember eyes or hair or a general sense of someone. Then, months or even years later, I will conjure that person through other details, parts of them, or feelings that I had of them, which were long forgotten. Nathaniel Mary Quinn's work gets at this mysterious mechanism of memory, at the soup of our unconscious, which becomes the often surprising material of our conscious life. Memory, Quinn seems to be suggesting, is never fixed. It is not a moment in the past that can be recreated perfectly. Instead, it is messy. It is curious. It is unexpected. Memory morphs in ways that are hard to imagine. The artist has said, "I believe in life you are an amalgam of numerous experiences. You are built from a history of joy, sadness, ups and downs." I am trying to articulate the essence of that.